Hey everybody, welcome to Fan Help. Alright, so I made a little shitty logo for this. But let's get on this discussion. I'm going to take a 20-30 minutes tops to kind of go over a question I got from Hector, who is in the chat room right now. What's up, Hector? So Hector sent me an email, said, hey Rob, he did a kaiju piece. He's kind of tired of looking at it and finding no way to improve the look on his own. He'd like to see if I can help him lend a pair of fresh eyes to see what can be improved, either lighting or pose or art. He thinks the splash effect is pretty happy. He's trying to have the kaiju eat Sydney Opera House. Well, let's see what this art looks like, shall we? Alright, so this is what Hector sent me. This is his picture of a kaiju destroying the Sydney Opera House. Couple of things here. So I want to talk about just basic lighting right now. I went and grabbed, this is a sunset piece. So what I look at when I see this, I see a creature attacking something at sunset. So, which he's sort of indicated by kind of doing some gradients. You can kind of see here. Why don't we actually look at some pictures of some sunsets? One of the things you need to notice, I was talked about this before when it comes to coloring, is with coloring you kind of want to think about, let me duplicate this really quick and make a little box I can write in. You want to think about global lighting and local lighting anytime you're coloring things. Otherwise you're going to end up with the paint by numbers approach. In this piece, the global lighting is the time of day. He's outside, so it's a sunset. And if you look at these pictures of some sunsets here, what do you notice first? You notice the position of the sun, which is really close to the horizon line, meaning everything above the horizon line gets darker because that's night. See, look at this. Look at the stars. Same here, stars. And as you get further away from the light, here it gets darker as well. So you sort of get this concentrated light. When I look at Hector's piece, I'm getting a giant light somewhere up here. He's really sort of being like lit by. Even though to me, due to the coloration, it looks like the sun should be, the time of day should be closer to down here. So we can also check this by desaturating the piece and kind of looking at it. Let's look at this, taking away the color and just looking at the value of this reference art from some sunsets. You really start to see sort of a big difference. First off, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. From a value point, god damn it. Come on, there. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead and multiply this. Why don't we just quickly try to create some global lighting? So it gets... Let me fill this in. If the light isn't coming from behind him but in front of him, you can sort of see like it's a little bit less intense. So it'd be more intense lower and less intense the higher you go. And this also like is sort of like predicated upon the idea that you understand that you're coloring these shapes three-dimensionally too. You're thinking about the shapes three-dimensionally. So from a basic lighting perspective, a point of view here, even from value, you can start to do some more interesting things. Versus that, right? Now, from a hue standpoint, this gets a little bit trickier. There's two ways to go: blue or purple. You know, I'm gonna go with this blue one here, and kind of just show you like when I say hue, we're talking about the color we're gonna use for the lighting. So if I shift this into a blue, and maybe do more of a hard light and more of a multiply, and that's probably to I want to tint. I usually start with a hard light or a multiply, just to sort of get an idea, and then we can think about, because I don't have a lot of time here. Let me just say the light was behind him because I don't got, well, this gets a little tricky. Because then you get into like overlay layers, and I think that might confuse some folks. Yeah, it's gonna confuse you. Oh, God damn it. All right. So let's just use this as a coloring example really quickly. I'm going to come in here and very quickly just lasso that in. Sampling from this image, right? And I'm going to do the same around here and get rid of these cartoonish colors for the background. We're doing fan help, man. All right, so people have questions. I'm going to just quickly mock this up and I'll explain to you. This is why it helps to study from life before you start doing your own lighting schemes. Right? And this is why it helps to have a mask of the character, because every time I do this I gotta like quickly draw this. overlay layers give you saturation. So they allow you to increase saturation. This is probably too dark up here. So when I'm painting in backgrounds, when I do my color roughies, I kind of do this first. I kind of do like a quick sketch, like just like this. But what I'll do is, see how Hector's character is brightly lit? It's hard for me to get a sense of mood when a character's like that. So when I'm coloring, I tend to start with the background first to create the global lighting. And then I'll take my mask of the character. Let's say I had an actual mask laid out. Okay, you motherfucker. It was already selecting some shit. So let me do this again. Hey, next time, Hector, you can send me a layered file, man. So it makes this a lot easier. So what I'll do is I'll take the character and quickly tint them a darker color. In this case, a gradient, which is the base of the map of the global lighting here. And I can add a little saturation. You don't want to go too crazy. And then what happens is once I get the background set up, turn it down to 40, maybe a color burn. Color burn or linear? More. Then I can go and add the shadows appropriately based on the light source. So in this case, it's more of a dark blue. Let's try something more like this. So I'm just going to do cell shading for the lack of. And maybe more of a purple. I have my own lighting rig set up for this, folks, so whatever. So then you can go and globally light the character. In this case, it'd be something more like this. It's tough because he already has his shadow layers on. So I'm drawing shadows over shadows at this point. Makes things a little bit more difficult. But say you can, and this is a little too harsh, but we'll bring that down. If he was going to be backlit, then I can come this way and light the character to that lighting, which would be sort of opposite of where the lighting's coming now. Or, you know, and then if the opera house had an actual light going on, like it was lit up, let's say the opera house had like blue light, then you can do local light where this stuff is spilling up onto him from underneath. This is not a good example of that. I tend to do this with airbrush. So like these days I'll, case in point, I'll like select some of these shapes here. And I can airbrush that in and then contract that down. And see, actually airbrush in some light, some underlight, some local color. So, but that's depending on like what's actually going on down there. So like this is why, Hector, I don't draw something and then figure out the colors once the drawing's done. I actually work out the fucking drawing and the color during the roughy phase and get that 100% figured out so that I can build. I know where all these light sources are going to come. Then I go build a drawing and then light the drawing. Like let's pretend this opera house had like lights, you know. So down here he'd be locally here, and then back here he'd be more lit to that. Case in point. So if I take a quick snapshot of just some basic lighting stuff, it goes from that to that, right? And this should all be figured out before you draw anything, like your little color thumbnails. Because you can go in here and really study, like, even from a reference pic, you can, you know, airbrush some clouds in. You can figure out this, like this undercloud thing that would be going on right here. This is why I used to do those little like landscape thumbnails. You know, come in here and actually work on where the light's coming from. It's hitting the water. And your splash effect, Hector, isn't working because it's under the lines. Like if you're gonna, you know, it needs to also be, you'd have to like look at some serious destruction videos of like, there needs to be like mist and see like atmospherics. It can't all be hard edge paints. So global light, local light, time of day, you know, study from actual photos. Yeah, I grabbed these from iStock. Type in iStock, type in sunset, you know, and this is where like gradient maps help for the global lighting, and then you can do regular shading to the character because you can focus on the value painting first, and then use gradient maps to create the global lighting, and then take your character, which is basically cell shader, cuts and grad style, and manually light him to that that image, because it gets further and further as you get into the specifics of painting. Like, you know, you can come in here and rim light and add little, if he has like scales, you know, you can have the light glisten off the scales. You know, you do this stuff kind of like last. But this is what your thumbnails are for. If your thumbnails, what I call roughies, if my roughies don't invoke a sense of awesomeness, then I don't move further on in the drawing, thinking I'm going to figure this out later. And so when I look at something like this, it's just all this should be figured out, you know, Like this should be your concept, not the final piece, you know, that someone's trying to figure out how to fix it. I always say like I don't like an art. I don't like it when I'm feeling like I have to like get lucky with my art. Like I need to, if I just keep magically doing things, the art's going to get better, you know? And so to understand what needs to be fixed, I have to have a very good understanding and grasp of just basic problem solving in art, basic things like construction, lighting, and your own personal technique will come through, you know, the hundreds of fucking drawings you do applying those things. Doesn't mean he always has to be completely in shade and make them all dark. You can do, you know, a more global lighting. So you can make them more bright. It doesn't all have to be super dark too. But in order to get that sense of emotion, it's going to take lighting. Hector. As for your drawing, what time am I at here? 23 minutes? I got a few minutes. As for your drawing, yeah, I mean, I definitely see you're applying, you know, more three-dimensionality and all that stuff, but like this, let's just look at some basic things, right? Like how well did you draw through this tail? Does this tail continue energy? It could bend more around this way. This could, you know, go behind, however it's working out. Same things like this is weird. So his shoulder would be here. His hand should come out more like this. So we got a long ways to go here on basic anatomy, right, Hector? Basic construction. Pushing this through, you know. Working out things like these. This hand, his thumb should be on this side. You got the thumb on the wrong side. This is the bottom of his hand. Hands work like this. If you hold up your hand, you're going to see you have a thumb and 4 fingers. You know? So make certain that when, you know, you know that where that thumb is supposed to go, you don't let your dyslexia get the better of you. As for this base, yeah, this is hard to tell what that is. So I know you're trying to do like the bend perspective here, you know, but I think if you're gonna do that, you need to seriously sit down and grid the whole thing out. Figure out what base this guy is actually going to be on, you know, like how it actually sits, because it's not sitting evenly on any level. How far back that's going to go, you know. Sit down and construct the shit out of it. Probably spend just as much time doing the basic base building construction as you would the entire piece at this point. To be honest, you don't even need to get that creative right now with your perspective, man. I would just, there's nothing here that you couldn't, you know, just have them coming out the water, to be perfectly honest. You know, if you wanted, you could just have all right here, him coming out the water, you know, looking awesome if you wanted to. But yeah, man, you got to sit down and bust out some of that ZBrush or get some Sculpey, or because I just feel like I'm looking at things where here it looks to me like you're just kind of like making lines up, or you're doing the foreshortening where you just kind of like this, you kind of put the vector man, right, where you got the hand and you're kind of doing like this. And then when you're trying to add muscles, you're just kind of like adding bumps, versus drawing. The way I think about it is, I think about it more like this, where I'm blocking in the shapes. Let's just take a claw and the way I think about it is drawing what's closest to me first, constructing it out. Let's just not, drawing's not a good term for that. Constructing what's closest to me first. And then I know he's got a little bit of a wrist there, and applying my constructional anatomy foreshortening, working my way backwards. Yeah, because like you should be really thinking about like how does this claw bend down? Like how's it hooking around? Is this coming more like at me? How does this knuckle connect back to the hand? Like this should be more like that wrist bump there, and this would come out like this, and there'd be like an elbow right there, here. So it's kind of a little all over the place right now. So you want to make sure you're actually drawing through and not just shorthanding for your foreshortening, right? Like I could spend an hour just coming over here and working out this foot, like, and how it's connected. See, like you're just like scrunching things up at this point to kind of make it fit, So, yeah. All right, everybody. It's 30 minutes. We have any questions about this stuff? Did it help, or did I make it more confusing? From a lighting perspective, look, you just got to like start working on coloring from times of days. Work out your value, where the global light's going to be, where your local light's coming from. And then again, foundationally, from your construction is sitting down and making sure you're drawing through objects, and that this construction actually works, like, because this arm right here, man, this is probably the biggest problem I have with the piece right now is you got anatomy missing. You got missing pieces there. I don't know. And then you've reversed the hand. So fortunately for you, all mistakes I've made once in my life before too. I used to have to like double check, where the fuck is the thumb coming from? So look at my hands and go, where is it? Where is it coming from? So yeah. But yeah, I mean, once you figure out basic mood lighting, global lighting, and local lighting, again, you can save a crazy drawing. This is where when I see certain comic books that people go, oh, that looks amazing, I can see whether the drawing's good or not, and how much the colorist helped the artist. Because I'm not going to say any names, but let's just say there's quite a few books out there, especially in the cheesecake category of comic books, where the drawing is really not that good, but they got an airbrusher to come in there and make some of those babes or those dudes look really sweet, And but their art's, I've been there, I've seen it. So yeah. When I was a kid, it used to be cross hatching. That's what they would do to save their drawing. They would do a kind of like a basic drawing, and then get some inker to go in there, and you just cross hatch. Remember the Jim Lee? You do the cross hatch, the metallic. You just fill it up with cross hatching before computer coloring really took off. That's what they used to do, right? They just cross hatch, cross hatch, cross hatch. So that's what they used to do. Now they just do it with a lot of coloring. But there's no excuse to sit down. I think, Hector, if you just sat down and reworked out the construction of this for a good week, just spend an hour a night focusing on working out where the joints would go, what actually would come out, fixing the hands, moving things up, just constructurally working that out. Don't get crazy with dynamics down here on the base. Focus on that. You'll end up with a much better drawing. And then, obviously, the time of day. All right, everybody. That's my basic advice. 30 minutes. 30 minutes! All right, I got stuff to do. So I'm going to be back on in a little bit, and we're going to be working on cheat codes. This fucking nonsense. So I got shit to do. I'll be back in a few. Leave your questions below. You can always, if you got an art tip or a question you want me to cover, just send it to me, man. Just leave it in the comments, send me an email, direct message me, however you want, and we'll make an art tips video. Peace out, everybody.